Should you be selling Foden, Saka or Son for Mo Salah with that brilliant fixture at home against Brighton? And also, who is the best captaincy for this weekend? We are discussing all of that in today's Game Week 30 team reveal video. As always, make sure to drop a like, smash that subscribe button, and enough waffling. Let's get into today's video. So it feels like forever since that disaster of Game Week 29 where I ended up free hitting and scoring 15 points, where it left me with a red arrow. So I'm hoping Game Week 30 is a bit better than that. So I thought it'd be a good idea for me to show you my team, just to give a bit of an idea on where I'm sat. And I'm sure a lot of you have similar-ish teams to myself. So here is how we're currently set. One free transfer, 4.1 million in the bank. So much flexibility in this team. And working my way from top to bottom, Dubravka in goal at home against West Ham. Decent enough fixture. Pope ruled out until April is not a problem for the rotation risk. Defence is a bit of a problem. Zabanye is going to come in, of course, for that home game against Everton, but I do not fancy them for a clean sheet. Gabriel away against Man City, not ideal, but as you can see on the bench, I have Saliba as well, so I don't really want to be going double up on the Arsenal defence. And Pedro Porro at home against Luton, which I think is a really favourable game. The midfield is the real big one here. Son at home against Luton is not only a brilliant game, but an amazing captaincy option, so we will talk about that later in this video. And Cole Palmer, another brilliant captaincy option at home against Burnley. The other ones are a little bit up for grabs here. As you can see, got Saka starting over Phil Foden on my bench at the time of recording. But of course, with Saka being on penalties, I feel that is a slight edge towards it. And with the injuries that Man City currently have with Stones and Walker, no clarification whether they're ruled out for the weekend. But if they are, I do think that gives an edge to Saka over Phil Foden, even though, of course, he is playing at home. And I'm going for Garnacho. This guy is killing me when I'm not starting him. So I'm hoping maybe this is an opportunity for him to deliver in my team. But again, my potential transfers may impact whether Garnacho starts or not. And in terms of the front three, Haaland at home against Arsenal, I don't love it. I don't actually fancy him scoring, but he, of course, is going to stay in the team. Watkins at home against Wolves. This is the big one because a lot of people right now are talking about sacrificing Watkins for somebody like a Darwin Núñez, or those that are wildcarding are going without Watkins. And I think this is a good fixture at home against Wolves. So I really like Watkins for this game week. And of course, Dominic Solanke as well. I think a lot of managers who are wildcarding are going to go without him. And I think this is a brilliant fixture for Dominic Solanke. So the team itself looks good. But as I discussed, Mo Salah has an unbelievable fixture this game week. And with the double game week 34 being officially announced, I need to start getting this team prepared for that game week, because the current plan is to wildcard in game week 35 and bench boost in game week 37. So I only have really a horizon up until game week 34. So let's get the fixtures up, the teams to target and avoid, and of course the players that are on my radar. So here are the fixtures between Game Week 30 and Game Week 34. Shout out to Fantasy Football Fix for the brilliant fixture graphic here. And as I mentioned, I am only looking at this horizon because beyond Game Week 34, first and foremost, we don't actually know what the fixtures are going to look like. We're expecting potential double game weeks in 36 and of course in Game Week 37. But with my trip strategy of wildcarding in Game Week 35, I just don't need to look beyond this period here. Now, I've taken out some of the teams that are just not worth talking about, so I do apologise if your favourite team isn't included on here, but there's just no reason to consider them as transfer options. So working our way down, firstly, as you can see, Spurs are a really interesting one because the fixtures over the next four I think are actually pretty decent, but of course they blank in game week 34. For me, people are talking about selling Son in game week 30 to accommodate Mo Salah. I just do not see that. With the Richarlison injury news and Son potentially playing as a number 9 against a Luton team who ship goals, there's just no world where I sell Son in that game week. So I think Spurs are a really interesting one. I think we could look to sell him around game week 33 onwards and wildcard the players back in, of course, after the blank. But for me, Spurs are not a sell right now with the fixture that they have in this game week. Newcastle, I'm not even going to look at right now. I've included them just because I think some people are eyeing up Isak. Great home fixtures, West Ham, Everton, but with them not doubling in game week 34, they are just not a priority for my team. Fulham, only included them in because some people are on about Muniz. He is the only player I would consider in this team. Again, the fixtures aren't incredible. They do not double. But if you are looking to maybe free up some funds in your team, Muniz could be an option in your team. But I'm not loving it right now. Villa I've included just because of Ollie Watkins. A lot of people are looking to sell Ollie Watkins beyond game week 30, and I kind of agree with it. City away in game week 31 and Arsenal away in game week 33. Yes, they do have Brentford at home in game week 32, but yes, we can't always have the best fixtures for each player. So for me, I think you hold Watkins for this game week, and then I think we can sell him if we want to, because City away and Arsenal away, they just don't come much more difficult than that. And of course, Bournemouth at home in game week 34, a brilliant fixture, but I'd rather have a double game week player. Now, getting into the interesting ones, Man United, I currently have Garnacho. I don't think we need to invest in them until game week 33 and beyond. And City, I just don't think we're going to be really looking to buy additional City right now without a double game week. But the interesting one, of course, is Phil Foden, who we might be looking to sell to accommodate a Mo Salah. Sell at your own peril. But I do think if you are going to sell him, you do it this game week with the Arsenal game, because after that, you're never going to want to sell him with Villa, Palace, Luton, Brighton. The reason why I've included this City fixtures is because if my team, if I do bring in Mo Salah right now, it would be at the sacrifice of Foden or Bukayo Saka. And when we look at the fixtures for Arsenal at the top of your ticker, even though this game week is difficult for both of those, I'd make an argument that you could keep either. However, the reason why I think Saka is the better keep is because the Luton game at home is fantastic. I think Brighton away is a good fixture. Villa at home, very open. I think that's a great fixture. And then they double in game week 34. And because of that double game week in 34 and Saka being on penalties and just a guarantee that he's going to be playing on the right side of that front three, I think Saka wins over Foden if you are looking to sacrifice one of those this game week for a Mo Salah. Now, outside of these fixtures, Chelsea, you can buy this game week. I think Malo Gusto's good, Nicholas Jackson, but again, I don't think it's desperate. I want to talk about the teams that double quickly. Everton, you can go there, but I'm not really compelled by any of their assets. Arsenal, we know, of course, are great. Liverpool, this is the time to strike if you really want to get differential picks. We hopefully will get a press conference today with an update about the injury status to Darwin Núñez, Trent, for example, but Bradley, Darwin Núñez, Mo Salah, their ownership is going to be the lowest possible right now. And with this fixture against Brighton, even though Brighton's underlying numbers defensively are a little bit better recently, I think this is the time to strike. And we're going to talk about Mo Salah in a bit more detail in a minute. Wolves, very interesting. Mixed fixtures and a double in game week 34. I think they are quite interesting if you want to get them in. Bournemouth, again, you can look to invest in them. Sheffield United, completely avoid. And Palace, I would only look to invest realistically for game week 34 in isolation. So the fixtures are good for a lot of teams. But I think if you're buying right now and you're looking to wildcard in game week 35, we got to be buying teams that double in game week 34 to really utilise the full value of those players. So with that said and done, I need to talk about Mo Salah and how I plan on getting him into my own personal team. So Mo Salah is back in FPL. I think he is now finally a firm consideration for all of our FPL teams, and he's currently the most bought player going into game week 30. And if you're not planning on buying him in game week 30, I think a lot of people are going to be buying him in game week 31 regardless. So the big question is, when is the time to strike? And for my team, I have two avenues. I either get him this week for a -4, or I get him in game week 31 as part of a 2 free transfer strategy. So I am one of those managers who can kind of resonate with both people. And of course, if you're wildcarding this week, then I do think Mo Salah is just absolutely essential. So first up, I think it's really important to consider the fixtures, and not only the fact that they just have a game week 30 fixture or the difference in times between them. So play against Brighton on the Sunday, but the big thing is that they then play Thursday against Sheffield United and then Sunday against Man United. So while I think, and I've spoke about it here, for Mo Salah, the pros of buying him in game week 30 is that there is an expected full game involvement for this game against Brighton. He didn't go away in the international break, so I'm fully expecting him, as long as he gets past fit in the press conference, to get a full game against Brighton, because I just don't see any reason why they need to take him off early. The big issue with the Sheffield United game is because it's on the Thursday and then they play Man United on the Sunday. Do we have any guarantees that he's definitely going to be playing in that Sheffield United game? So we do need to talk about that. But I think he's going to have full involvement in the Brighton game, which is brilliant. I think he's unbelievable time to strike now because his ownership is going to be at its absolute lowest. Beyond game week 30, his ownership is just going to keep creeping up. At the time recording, it's at 25%. At game week 31, that will be 55%. So if you want to get the full value from Mo Salah, this is the time to get him. And he's also a brilliant alternative captain. With the injury to Richarlison, Son does look like the better pick, playing as a forward against Luton. But if you really want to go against the grain, I do think Mo Salah is a brilliant option this game week. Now, what are the negatives of buying in this game week? Well, for my team, it means that I have to sell Phil Foden and Saliba. I don't really consider Watkins as a cash cow this game week, so it would be Foden and Saliba. And the problem with that is there's no denying Foden is a brilliant option, and Saliba is a double game week defender in 34. So it isn't optimal getting rid of those, but it does make sense for my own team in the long run, getting Mo Salah in for game week 30 in isolation. So while it is a negative, I do think it will benefit longer term. And it requires a -4 point hit, which isn't ideal. We'll come on to game week 31's pros and cons in a minute, but regardless, taking a points hit is never ideal, especially when you're selling proven assets like Foden and Saliba. And the other thing is, the Brighton game, while it looks good on paper, their defensive numbers over the last 5-6 game weeks have actually been really solid. They're in the top 5 of the league. So with them getting players back in the team, as Stupinan and all, I think there is a little bit of concern that this game could be a little closer than we first anticipated. So pros and cons of game week 30, you can see on your screens. Let's move on to game week 31 and then a bit of a conclusion. So of course, game week 31 would mean we avoid the Brighton game, but we bring him in for the Sheffield United game. Now, what are the pros of this in my team? Well, I'll be buying it as part of a free transfer, which is really important. Rather than in game week 30 taking a -4 point hit, I'm just getting all, as we call it, profit basically with the free transfers. And also the big thing is I've got way more flexibility on players to sell. So whereas in game week 30, I'm pretty much rigid on having to sell Foden and Saliba, in game week 31, I could, if I wanted to, sell Son. If we were to see Richarlison return as the number 9 and Son go out on the left, that means Son could be the cash cow. Watkins comes into a really tricky run of fixtures, so I could sacrifice Watkins to Darwin, and then I could then do Foden or Son to Salah. So it opens up a lot more avenues in game week 31. But the big problems are we're not going to get any early team leagues. We're then playing on Thursday in the game week 31 deadline on the Tuesday. We're not going to get any information. I do think there is risk of rotation with the Sheffield United game, of course, with the Man United game only 4 days later. So that's my only concern right now with the Sheffield United. You avoid the Brighton game, you buy him for Sheffield United, and he doesn't even play in the game, and you're getting zero benefits from the player. So that's a slight concern. And the other thing is, his ownership will probably be double that of what it was in game week 30. I really do believe that. I think we're seeing lots of buys right now. It is going to be even more when it goes into game week 31 just because of the fixture. So to conclude, I think there honestly is an argument to do both. I think you go for game week 30, you go for the, I'm going to say, less riskier pick because I do think he will definitely start. And I think you're getting real high benefits because of the low ownership. But for a -4 and selling someone like a Phil Foden, it's not ideal. The problem is, it's either Foden, Saka or Son at some point. And all three of those you can make a case to be an unbelievable option. So while we could say, I don't want to sell Phil Foden in game week 30, I got to sell one of them in game week 31 regardless. The only thing about it is the second player that I sell doesn't necessarily have to be Saliba. It could be an Ollie Watkins, for example. So a lot to think about right now. But at the time of recording, I do feel like I want to get a little bit ahead of the grain, knowing that everybody's going to get him in 31. Why don't I just get him in game week 30, where I think his game time's absolutely guaranteed, and I get him as an alternative captaincy option for this game week? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, as I mentioned, as part of bringing in Mo Salah, if I were to do so, it would require me to downgrade Saliba, and it would only leave me 4.5 million in the bank, which I think is actually really ideal because I think a lot of managers right now are looking at defensive options for their teams. And if you are looking to buy a defender, for me personally, if you're on the same strategy of wildcarding in game week 35, the defender probably does have to have a double game week in 34 really to justify the moves that you are making. You just get that extra fixture later down the line. And the three that I've highlighted right now are going to be Bradley of Liverpool, Munoz of Crystal Palace, and Aït-Nouri at Wolves. I do think Malagusto is a brilliant option at Chelsea. I do not think Reece James will take his place at all. But of course, he doesn't double. So I'm just going to go for these ones over Malagusto as an option. But I do think he's brilliant. So first up, Conor Bradley. Worth noting, he hasn't played a lot of minutes for Liverpool, only 447, but when he has, he is a joke. These are all based on per 90 minutes. XG 0.11, 0.3 XA per 90 is ridiculous, and he's averaging 1 bonus point per 90. He's incredible, and I do think with the injury to Trent looking like he could be out until game week 32 or game week 33, he is locked in for the next few game weeks. But that's the issue. What is going to happen after that period when Trent is back? I do think Trent is still Klopp's man, and I just don't see a scenario where Bradley just continues to play at right back until the end of the season. And as I mentioned, these defenders, they're great for the short term, but importantly, you want to have that guarantee in double game week 34, and I don't think Bradley offers that. So I think Bradley is unbelievable, and if I was looking for a defender for the next 3 game weeks, he is your man. I think he is by far and away the best option. But if you're looking a bit more longer term, up until game week 34, he could cause some problems in your team when you get to that point. Now, Munoz, again, has played limited minutes, as you can see, only 540 minutes, but he has been really interesting. Now, looking at the numbers, these are a little bit mixed. They've been under Hodgson and, of course, the new manager. 0.06 XG per 90, 0.09. What I do like, he's playing as a wing back now in this new system of 3. So I think he could actually see his numbers improve over the coming game weeks. This one's a little bit differential, a bit more left field, but I really like the Palace double in game week 34. The only concern is it's a new manager. We don't even know which formation or players he's absolutely locked into. So while Munoz looks great right now, who's to say in a couple of game weeks the manager thinks to himself, actually, I prefer this player in that position. So he looked good. I really do like him, but I just have no guarantees that he will be the starter in that Palace team come game week 34. So on that basis, maybe Aït-Nouri is just the guy. 4.5 million. He has been an ever-present while he's been injury-free in this Wolves team, a very good Wolves team, and you can see his numbers are very good. 0.08 XG per 90, 0.1 expected assists, and the big thing is he has played considerable minutes, so we do have a decent understanding of what we're getting from this player. Wolves, a decent double in game week 34. Yes, one of those is against Arsenal, but another against Bournemouth, and both at home. And with the fixtures, Aït-Nouri actually fits quite well with the team. So if I was picking one right now, Bradley for the next 2 or 3, 100%. Otherwise, I think Aït-Nouri is the best alternative defender for our teams. So just a reminder of how my team is looking without the transfers. And I can't lie, at the time of recording, I am 50-50. Logically, I think it makes sense just to roll the transfer. Mo Salah in for a -4 is brilliant. I really want him in my team, but starting 11 looks okay here. So realistically, I will show you my team in a minute, but obviously Gabriel will come out. I would have a new defender, but the new defender isn't really looking good for a clean sheet. And then it puts a lot of pressure on Mo Salah to deliver in this Brighton game when I will then be benching Garnacho, and Garnacho could easily do well, or equally I could start Foden and he could do just as well as Mo Salah. So I'm going to show you my team if I were to make those transfers, and then we're going to talk about captaincy because I think that's a really important topic as well this week. So if I was to go through with the -4 that I discussed, selling Saliba and Phil Foden for Aït-Nouri and Mo Salah, it would look like this. And I really do like the team. The problem is Gabriel away against Man City, Aït-Nouri away against Aston Villa. I see very little difference between the two, so I don't see any upside in the defender that I'm bringing in this game week. And the problem is as well, I'm selling a double game week Arsenal defender for a double game week Wolves defender, so that isn't great in the long term, and then I'm basically down to 2 Arsenal players in the long run. And then of course we have Mo Salah at home against Brighton. That's the big upside this week, and it is basically putting all my eggs in one basket. If I'm going to bring in Mo Salah, I'm going to put the captaincy on him to try and justify the -4, and we're all in on him as an option, knowing that his ownership is only 25 to 30%, and I'm going to get such huge benefits from him. And then going into this week, I have all of the big guns really. Got Mo Salah, we still keep Son, we got Saka on pens, and of course we still have Watkins and Solanke with those brilliant home fixtures. Now in terms of captaincy, realistically, if you owned all of these players, I still think Son is the best pick with the Richarlison injury, Son playing as number 9 on penalties. Yes, he played 2 games over the international break, but I don't think Spurs have the luxury to bench Son in this game, and Luton with the injuries that they do have, I only see a positive Spurs result and Son being in and amongst the goals in this game. So I really do like Son as captaincy, and he would be my number 1 pick. Now, of course, with this team, I will be bringing in Salah as part of a -4, so that is why I'm compelled to put the captaincy on him. In terms of Cole Palmer versus Mo Salah, I would have Mo Salah ahead of Cole Palmer. I think Cole Palmer is unbelievable. If you would say to me to get a double-digit return, I probably would agree with you here, but I just think Mo Salah has that higher ceiling where if somebody was going to walk away with a hat-trick this game week, it's going to be one of Son or Mo Salah. So I think those two are on a pedestal in themselves, and then Cole Palmer is the third option. And then we look at the forwards like Watkins or Solanke, but realistically, I think those three midfielders are ahead of all of the others, with Son being number 1, Salah number 2, and Cole Palmer number 3. So my transfer plan, if I were to pull the trigger, is Aït-Nouri and Mo Salah in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, but at the time of recording, I do feel compelled to just roll the transfer, and I feel like this video has lent me towards that, but let me know your thoughts. Yes, guys, okay, thank you so much for tuning into today's video. As you can see, I'm still scratching my head on exactly what to do with my transfers. I will update you, of course, in tonight's live stream, so make sure if you're not already, you are subscribed to the channel, as I should have a bit of a clearer head on exactly what I'm doing. But hopefully the hot topics that I discuss have helped you out with your own personal plans. As always, make sure you do drop a like, smash the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Cheers.